I thought I'd do a little video review on the 1270G and Scorpion King. I've had a chance to demo this 1270 for a couple days. We've had this Scorpion King for about a year and a half, so I'm real familiar with it. This was my first time ever driving a 1270 of any kind, so everything was new to me. Overall, I really was pretty impressed with the machine. First off, I guess we'll look at these heads. Get the H415 and the H7. As you can see, physically they're about the same size. The 415 opens a little wider. Just looking at it, I think it's probably more comparable to the H8. I think it definitely handles the bigger trees better than the H7, just because these feed roller axles are quite a bit wider, so just the geometry is better for a bigger tree. I'm not impressed with these feed rollers. I think I would have had better results with the thumbnail rollers. I guess my biggest complaint about this head, which to me is almost a deal breaker, is there's no timing arm between these feed rollers. So if the head twists a little bit, or the head's swinging side to side and there's more weight pulling on one feed roller, the feed rollers can get out of time, and the stem can get twisted or over to one side in the head. And if it twists, it causes these knives to dig in, and then it spins out, and it's just a pain in the butt. So for that reason, I think that's a really big downfall of this head. That being said, it's got incredible speed and power. I don't think it would quite compare to the power of the H8, but it definitely outfeeds this H7 for power. Speed wise, it's about the same. So really overall, it's a pretty impressive head, but that issue of the timing arm, I think is a big issue. And as I played with feed roller pressures, that got a little better. I don't know, maybe some of you got some different thoughts on that. This H7 has been a phenomenal head. This is the third one I've run. They're really great heads. My biggest complaint about this head is that these feed roller axles are the same axle as the bottom knives. So in my opinion, the geometry isn't great for really big stems. You know, that's really the biggest difference between this and the H8, and feed motors are, you know, different size, but physically this head's about the same size as an H8. It's just these feed rollers are a lot tighter to the center of the frame, so when you get a bigger tree, it struggles a little more. The H7 definitely seems to measure better than the 415, and I think that's probably because of that stem twisting, because of the feed rollers not having the timing arm again. But as long as the stem was straight in the 415, it seemed to be very accurate lengthwise. Diameter-wise, a different story. The H7 definitely seems to be more accurate with diameters. And I'm not using the top knife sensors. I'm using the feed roller, the timing arm sensor on the H7. That seems to be the most accurate for our type of cutting. Although the H415 wasn't bad, it just wasn't as consistent in the diameters as the H7. Got the same rotator on each head, so that was a good comparison. I'm really happy with these new Black Bruin rotators. These swing brakes on this John Deere were seized up. I can't get them to tighten up, so that was kind of annoying. The head was just swinging all over the place. One thing I'm concerned about with this head is this tilt frame is just one piece. It's fairly heavy steel, but when you rotate this rotator, this frame flexes a lot. I mean, it's visible, and I guess my question is, how long is that going to last doing that? It might be fine. I don't know. It just looks concerning. As you can see, this is a fabricated structure, so it's a lot more rigid. But yeah, overall, I'm pretty impressed with both heads. At the end of the day, for the type of work we do, I prefer the H7. The cranes, yeah, they're both lifting capacity. I thought was fairly close. I think the Scorpion's a little heavier, or has a little more lifting capacity, but they were pretty comparable. Speed-wise, they really were similar. The big difference is the Scorpion has way more swing power than I think it's a CH7, whatever his 1270 has, is really lacking in swing power. And for the steep ground that we do most of the time, that would be a deal breaker for me on this machine. But other than that, it was a pleasure to run. The crane worked nice. They both have balanced bogies, 8-wheelers. They're NAF bogies. Track power seems about the same. I think the John Deere is a little quicker on its feet in turtle gear, but when I got on a steep hill, they seemed like they both had about the same amount of power. I didn't get anything really steep to really push them to their limits, but I think they're both very capable machines for steep ground. One of the big things that I missed with running this 1270 was the side-to-side leveling on the crane that you have on the Scorpion. In broken ground, that is just an option I don't think I could live without. The Scorpion and the 1270 both only tilt back 15 degrees, which is really not enough for steep ground. The 1270 will tilt quite a bit further forward than the Scorpion, so going uphill it would probably in some cases do better on steep ground. As far as the design and basic construction of these machines, the frames and the back end here, they really look like they're both about the same as far as serviceability. They're both very well designed, good looking machines. Really very impressive machines to look at, and I think long term they're going to both hold up really well. We'll take a look inside the cabs here. I really enjoyed the turning cab on this 1270. I like the basic configuration of the machine. I ran an ergo, actually a couple ergos for a long time, and honestly, in my opinion, this is a much better configuration than the ergo. The cab sits a lot closer to the back of the machine here, so visibility is much better than the ergo, and the turning cab obviously is great. It felt really a lot like driving the Scorpion, because the cab's sitting in basically the same place. So as far as navigating the machine through the woods, they were very similar in that respect. Obviously you've got the crane in front of the window here, so that is a blind spot, but again, not near as bad as the ergo. I definitely, the Scorpion obviously is much better visibility out the front, but it's really not that big of an issue. Something I could definitely get used to. The inside of the cab actually was kind of a big disappointment, I thought. I just don't think it's as nice looking as the newer Ponsse cabs. Just seems a little bit cheap, I guess. Just the switches and everything just don't feel as high quality as the Ponsse. But everything is easy to get to and worked fine. My biggest complaint about the inside of the cab and running this machine is the controls. Just many levers, no buttons on the control. I guess a lot of people are used to these John Deeres and they don't mind it, but I've run Ponces for so long, having the buttons on the joystick is something I don't think I would want to live without. That being said, John Deere has done a good job with their automation, so you don't need to reach for a lot of buttons to run this machine. Although in crooked timber, you need to run your knives individually sometimes in feed rollers, which are over here, and depending on where your joystick is, it's hard to reach those, and that's a production loss, I think. The other thing is you've got 4 buttons, slow feed over here and fast feed over here, so 4 buttons for the feed, where the Ponsse, the feed is on this rocker, so it's just really easy, and it's proportional on the Ponsse. You push it a little bit and they move a little bit. With these, you just have 2 speeds. I feel like the head open and close, which is here, it's on 1 button in Ponsse, so that honestly seems to be a simpler design to me, and just allows for a lot more multifunctioning and operability with the head. The computer is pretty simply laid out. It's a lot less complex than the Ponsse system, which I think is good and bad. There's a lot less that you can do to customize the way the head functions, but it works pretty well. I think if I got used to the system, it wouldn't be as big of a hurdle. I definitely like the way the price list and setting up the job site is in the Ponsse better. Partly because I'm used to it, but I just think it's a cleaner setup and less screens to go through to set that up. But overall, it's a nice cab, and you know, it was really fun machine to run. We'll go take a look at the Ponsse cab. Both machines have good access, you know, nice steps and grab handles. I just personally like the color in the Ponsse better. It's a darker material and it seems a lot more heavy duty. I like the light switches better instead of the buttons on the keypad in the John Deere. You can choose your buttons individually for your lights here and turn everything on with one switch, and they stay on when you turn the key off, which is nice if you're changing the chain in the dark. And there may be a way to do that in a John Deere. I didn't find that, but I like the handling screen a lot better in the Ponsse. You've got more production data. I like the gauge panel better. One thing that I really missed in the John Deere, I don't know why isn't that working? Oh, my door's open, that's why. One thing that I really missed in the John Deere was in the Ponsse here, we've got, for all these messages to go away, there's a row of little cells here, and these are different sensor readings. So you can see what your tilt sensor is doing, your length sensor, your saw sensor. The length sensor shows the speed that you're feeding while you're feeding. Just a lot of good information there that I like to see, and maybe some operators don't think about it, but you know, when, like, for owner operators like us, we do all our own mechanic work and everything. It's just nice to know what's going on and see all that stuff in real time. One thing that the John Deere didn't have that I couldn't find anyway, maybe it's there, was something that showed the percentage of cut. So in this machine, in the prognosis here, there's a percentage that shows how far through your cut you are, and that depends on the diameter. And there was nothing to do that in the John Deere. There was an indicator that showed your bar was out, but it didn't correlate to the actual percentage of the cut. So if you couldn't see a big stump or something you were trying to cut off, you didn't really know how far you were through the stump if you couldn't see the bar. And that to me was a real downfall. But anyway, the climate control on both machines works really well. They're both automated and work quite well. They're comfortable cabs. They're quiet. Seem to be tight. Pretty dust free. So yeah, I mean, they're both really nice machines. I think you could be productive and make good money with either machine. For us, we've got really good service with Ponsse. I don't know about John Deere. I do have to say, Pape's the John Deere dealer here. They were very eager and willing to bring this machine out and let us try it, and big thank you to them for that. Honestly, they seem to be a lot more aggressive in that regard than Ponsse is, but Ponsse has been outstanding in their service, product support. Their parts availability has been awesome. I can probably count on one hand how many times we've had to get something from Finland in, what, 13 and a half years of running Ponsses. So I'd say that's pretty outstanding part support, and I know that the John Deere guys can't say the same around here, at least. I know there's parts of the world where they're definitely leaps and bounds better than Ponsse. So that's probably one of the biggest deciding factors between these two machines, I think, would be the service and parts availability. But for us, I think we're gonna be Ponsse customers for a lot of years. So yeah, that's my thoughts. Hope that gives some of you guys some information on these two amazing machines. Well, I'm back in the Scorpion after running the 1270 for a while, and there's a couple things I forgot to mention on the review video I did. Something that to me is an absolute deal breaker, why I would never buy a 1270 over the Scorpion, is this stabilization system, and it's hard to explain if you've never actually run one of these Scorpions, but the ability to drive with the crane out to the side, to me, is just an awesome feature when you're in thinnings. We do thinnings pretty much all the time, so I can drive with that crane out quite a ways with a tree in the head, and it just stays flat on the ground. With a 1270 or an ergo for that matter, but with those type of machines, you're just relying on that frame lock, and that releases as soon as you hit the travel. So that to me is one of the biggest benefits of the Scorpion over other machines. Another thing that maybe I couldn't find it on that 1270, but I couldn't find we call it proportional tilt on this machine, but the ability to stop the tilt at any point you want. That's really nice, especially for casting the head to reach a tree that's a little bit out of reach, because you can cast it out there like so and catch a tree that's just out past your reach. And just the fact that the drive switch and steering and everything is on the joysticks all the time, you don't have to reach for it, just makes maneuvering this machine through the woods a lot quicker and smoother and just more efficient all around. Like I said before, the 1270 is a really nice machine. It's well built, fun to run, and a fairly productive machine. There's just some things I feel that Ponsse is just doing a better job on, and as long as service is somewhat comparable, and price isn't completely out of line, I personally don't see any reason to buy a John Deere over a Ponsse. But those are just my opinions, and I'm sure a lot of other people are really happy with their John Deeres. So another thing that I really like about the Ponsse is the proportional feed. Or with John Deere, you have slow feed, fast feed, and I know the proportions are adjustable, but you just have 2 speeds. With this, you can just creep like this and speed up to full speed, and it's just a matter of running the rocker on the joystick. It's so easy to do. Another thing that I like, maybe the John Deere does this, but I couldn't find it, but if you hit either the Opti button or just a length preset, like I'll just hit a length preset here, it automatically feeds to the target length. And I know the John Deere will do auto feed, but the only thing I could get it to do was after you saw it would auto feed to the next length. And in these things, I don't want it to auto feed right after I saw. I want to hit a button to command the feed, when I'm ready, so I'm not going to be hitting leaf trees. So with this, I can swing to the point I want, hit the Opti button or a preset, it goes to the preset length. If for some reason I want to stop it, I just hit that rocker that controls the proportional feed. My thumb is always on that button. It never has to move to do anything else while I'm feeding. It just, to me, makes it a lot more controllable. It allows you to process faster in a thinning while being more accurate and not risking feeding into other trees. So that was a huge one for me. Also, with the John Deere, you open and close the head with the rocker. This machine, open and close is just the press of one button. Press open, press close, and you can configure that. There's so many options with the Ponsse system to configure that to the operator's specific preferences or whatever, and you can put those buttons anywhere on the joysticks you want. It's completely customizable, and I've got one easy button to hit for my knives, individual knives, whatever you want, the feed rollers. And the way I've got my controls set up, one finger is on each one of those things, so I can do those all at the same time, whatever I want. Tilt, feed, anything. I don't have to move any fingers to any other place. So the ability to multi-function and just finesse the head and control it in tough situations, crooked timber, whatever it may be, it's just so much quicker and so much more efficient. And overall, this Scorpion really is just a really nimble, smooth thinning machine for the kind of power it has. I did that first review video right after I parked the 1270 before I got back in this Scorpion, and honestly, after running the Scorpion again, after spending some time in that John Deere, I'm rethinking how much I really did like that John Deere. It was a nice machine, and like I said, worked well and had good performance. But just the overall package, I think this Scorpion is hands down a far superior machine. One other thing I should have looked at when I had these heads parked side by side, but if you look at this compared to that H415, the hose routing is so much cleaner on this head. Like the way the hoses run into these feed motors, it's just really almost completely protected, nothing hanging out. Just a really clean design. You know, it's a compact head, but it's pretty easy to work on. That lower oil tank, well, this is a grease tank, but the oil tank on the bottom of the head hinges out, so you work on the back of the valve block. You know, there's some tight hoses in there, but they've gone to a lot of hard pipes in there where they can, and it's really a nice, clean head. I'm really impressed with it. You know, that the 415, it was a good head and worked good, but it was just kind of a mess with all the hoses hanging out of the back of the feed motors and just piled on the head like they were. One thing I forgot to mention earlier, probably one of my favorite features on this system is it's called proportional knife control, and there's a lot of different ways to configure it. The way I've got it set up is I hit one button, and just like that, it opens the head and tips the head down, and then with my proportional rocker, which is normally my feed roller control, I can run just the top knives proportionally, and it's so nice for just if I have to pick up a small piece like that, or you know, if you've got a miscut log or something you have to pick out of a pile, it's just so easy to do that way. And then as soon as you let go of that button, you're back to normal operation. And you can also I've got another button that allows proportional control of basically the whole head, and then you can set it up to just do certain functions individually. And that's really nice. A lot of times, just if you need to work on the head or something, you want to open just the feed rollers a little ways or whatever. It just really is a nice feature to have. I didn't really show a good view of these Ponsse Comfort Grip controls before, but these are what they look like. It's got buttons on the front here, and there's a proportional rocker here, drive selection, and on this side you've got basically the same thing. Windshield wipers are here. One thing that's really nice is your steering for the base machine is proportional right here, front to back, and then your feed rollers are on this rocker, so everything is always within reach. You never have to move your hand to reach anything, and they're just very nice controls. as you can see, this tree was definitely a struggle, but this is one that 1270 would not, it just wouldn't possibly pull it up out of that hole. And it's kind of hard to see from the video here, but I'm actually pulling uphill pretty hard on this tree. And I mean, it's big, it's got a double top, it's just a heavy tree, and that crane on the 1270 just wouldn't even possibly have brought it up the hill like that. And as you can see, this head's got plenty of power to pull these big heavy trees uphill. Power is just unbelievably higher with this Scorpion, and not just the power, but the swing is so much more positive with this. But it's got two gear motors driving the swing, so you've got the resistance of the motor, you know, as you're slowing down instead of just hydraulic cylinders for the swing on the 1270. And it just makes a lot more solid, positive, accurate swing, in my opinion. And allows for a lot greater power. It's just really hard to explain till you can really get in one of these and run it, but it makes a huge difference in these thinnings when you're trying to be accurate, and you need a lot of power to drag trees out from between standing trees, and just a lot better system. I brought my my right-hand man with me today, and he spends most of his time studying harvesters and forwarders when his mom's not making him do chores. But this is Sawyer. Say hi, Sawyer. Hi. He knows quite a bit about harvesters, and I brought him along today, and we rode the 1270 for a while, and came back to Scorpion, and really wanted to get his opinion on it because, like I said, this kid, he studies harvesters and forwarders all day, every day. So what do you think, Sawyer? What's the best thing about the Scorpion?
It looks cool, and it has more cool stuff, and
more cool stuff. That's a pretty good reason. What do you like? What do you like best about the John Deere?
Because it's more comfortable, and
yeah, it has more room behind the seat. Yeah, this would have more room if I didn't have my fridge and my oven here. But so you like the Scorpion better, though? Okay, well, you heard it from Sawyer. It's official. So yeah, those are our thoughts.